Hello friends, welcome to the channel. In this video, we are going to learn more about test coverages. But before we dive into today's topic, let me take you back to a project I joined many years ago, long ago. I was excited but a bit confused. I was given a bunch of testing tasks to execute, so I simply followed the instructions. But deep down, I kept asking, why exactly am I doing this? What is the purpose? And how is this making the quality of the systems better? The tasks felt like a checklist, but I had no clear understanding. So I thought, let me speak to my QA lead. She might have some ideas. That conversation changed everything. She was very kind and broke it down and made it very simpler for me. The different types of tests, the role of test environments, the importance of test execution cycles. All these things made a lot of sense for me. And that's what I wanted to share with you today. The why behind the work. Because understanding the purpose transforms you from a simply task executor to a true test engineer, a true quality engineer. Let's get started. Let's start with test types. So there are various test types. As a manual tester or an automation tester, you have to cover all these test types. Let's go through this, but we'll get into the detail in the later part of the videos. Data count validation testing, business validation testing, negative testing, data type and format testing, logging and alert testing, smoke testing, scheduling and monitoring testing, performance testing, manual checks as well as automation checks, transformation testing, and DLQ testing, incremental load testing. This transformation testing has to be done by checking your ETL mapping sheet, and you have to see the DLQ conditions at what are the conditions a transformation logic will end up in a DLQ. So that you have to test here. Incremental load testing, when the data is ingested, whether it's a first time you are ingesting or incrementally you are changing the records, whether it's update or a delete. So that kind of testing will be covered here. But why, when, and how all this testing will be done, we'll get into that later part of this video. Then we'll cover test environments and test execution. Okay. Let's go to the next part. Test environments. What all test environments are there and why they are there? That's very important to note. Let's focus on test environments. So test environments are nothing but different of test infrastructures which has been created for different purposes. So there are development environment and QA environment. Other than that, you have SST and SIT. SIT is nothing but system integration testing environment. SST is system smoke testing environment. Okay, system smoke testing. This is system integration testing. Then you have pre-production environment, which is mimicking the production environment. Then you have OAT environment, which is operational acceptance testing environment. And you have UAT also, which this diagram is not showing, but we'll get into that later. But you get the gist of it, what all environments you have to deal with. So as a test engineer, you must be aware of all these environments. And then there is, see here, PII data, which is personally identifiable information data masking environments. So that is another environment prior to production. So in the pre-production, there you can have more than one environments: pre-prod 1, pre-prod 2, pre-prod 3, so on and so forth. One of them will have PII data masking data there. So there's certain kind of testing how to perform there. Okay, so we'll get into that later, but try to understand all these environments and their purposes. Okay. Now the third one is test execution. Let's get into that one. Test execution categories. So what all things you have to execute and when? So there is something called continuous integration. So this is mainly used for automated testing. What is continuous integration? We'll cover that soon. Let's focus on logging and alert testing. So when the ETL pipeline transfers data from source to target, there are various types of loggings: debug logging, info logging, then warning label logging, and error label logging. So all these things needs to be tested in an environment, and alert mechanism are set up from the loggings. So that also to be tested. There are two types of testing anyway. You have manual testing as well as automated testing. Scheduling batch testing, which is you have batch jobs and bulk load jobs, which needs to be tested. Error handling testing. If bad data comes or something goes wrong in the transformation, how the error is handled, whether the record is filtered, the record is rejected, or the record ends up in DL queue, which is dead letter queue. We'll cover all this separately: what is DL queue, how it is designed, what's the purpose. But for now, try to understand that error handling to be tested. And continuous integration, Jenkins is one of the mechanism you do. It's an open source way of doing continuous integration, which is called CI. But there are other tools like GitHub Actions, GitLab, CI/CD pipeline. All these are kind of Jenkins. They do the same thing, continuous integration. Okay, so testing execution categories covers a lot of things here. Now let's look at manual testing checkpoints. What exactly these checkpoints are and what all things to be tested or to be checked as part of that testing. For example, smoke testing. Run the ETL job end to end and ensure it completes successfully with no fatal errors. In smoke testing, we do not cover too many things. We cover end to end very important scenarios, and we have to make sure there is no severe errors, so the pipeline is okay. So that is called smoke testing. Record count validation. Check if the number of records from the source is matching with the target as expected. After the filters, like after you put your where conditions, joins, and various filters where your database is concerned or the file system is concerned, make sure the record count matches. Transformation checks. Manually transform few sample records from source and compare with target. How do that? Go to the ETL mapping sheet and pick a transformation logic and manually write code, apply the transformation logic on the source data, then compare with the target data. Data format validation, check if target data types, data formats, null checks is matching with your ETL mapping sheet. Negative testing, insert bad or missing data and check if the pipeline handles it as expected. So the pipeline can reject the record or simply logs it, do nothing, or skips it, doesn't even process, or DLQs it, like processes but puts into a dead letter queue. All these aspects you have to test. These are manual checkpoints. Incremental load testing. Trigger delta load and verify that only new or updated records are picked up. So this is particularly useful when you have database trigger based jobs. Okay. Primary key and duplicates. So if you are doing deduplicate of data, then this checking is very, very important. Check for unexpected duplicate records in target. If you do this kind of testing and if you find there is a duplicate entry, then immediately highlight that your dedupe is not working. Okay, so that's the job of a manual tester, or we can say all these are testing checkpoints a manual tester must do, and an automation tester can automate as much as possible. Okay, let's look at requirement understanding via ETL mapping sheet. Your ETL mapping sheet is the requirement document which you receive from BS, business analyst. It has source to target mapping, join conditions, transformation rules, which we have already covered in earlier video, data types and constraints, your primary key, foreign key, what kind of data is date type, string type, number type, and filter and business rules like our join conditions and filtering rules. Okay, so that pretty much covers your requirement understanding. Now the next one is tasks or responsibility of a manual tester. What all things a manual tester should do? Environment readiness check, whether it is system testing environment or a pre-prod environment. Make sure you have access to source, target and logs. Logs can be your elk stack, which is having Kibana. Okay, and ensure test data is loaded or mock data is available before you starting the testing of the data pipeline. Make sure you have made it ready, the test data as well as the mock data. Mock data is used for your boundary condition mocking or other data mocking or simply API mocking. Check basic connectivity to databases, API servers and auth servers. So before you start testing, make sure independently that these API servers, databases are working. Like you can check API servers connectivity via Swagger document, auth server connectivity via Swagger, databases via your SQL developer or dbeaver or DataCrypt, which we have already covered in the earlier video. Have a look at it. So these are pretty much task and responsibility of a manual tester. Also automation tester, but mostly for manual testing. Automation testing, everything happens automatically behind the scene, or you trigger, you click a button, everything happens. But the manual tester, they have to make sure they have all these connectivities and readiness checks. Okay. Next one is continuation of tasks and responsibility of manual testers. Basic job monitoring of pre-prod and OIT. Observe that logs and warnings are working correctly. Ensure rejected records are discoverable. If the records are rejected, as a tester, you must find out from the logs or in the DLQs somewhere. Otherwise, how to test? So, when the developer is saying under these conditions, this record will get rejected. So, in a pipeline, that record will not be processed. It doesn't get through pipeline. But you test that. Somewhere you have to see that, okay, this record was there in the start of the pipeline, and in the log, you discover that it was rejected. And check if alerts mechanisms are working. Example, if there were some severe alerts due to some reason, some kind of critical data or business data which ends up in alerts, there should be a mechanism to alert the support team or production team or business team. So as a tester, you have to make sure that alert mechanism works. So that covers pretty much everything, task and responsibility of a manual tester. Here we covered some aspects, and in this page we covered some aspects. Now let's look at testing types versus environments. So which environment covers what kind of tests? So we have dev, SST, pre-prod, OAT, UAT, and production, which is live. OAT, I have already told you earlier that it's operational acceptance testing. UAT is user acceptance testing environment. Pre-prod is like production. SST is system testing environment. Dev is for developers, where developers put their code and do their testing before it comes to the QA team. Now look at this dev environment. What all things it is officially covering? Transformation testing and negative testing. So developers, they don't do this smoke testing, data count validation, incremental load testing, primary key dedupes, performance testing, monitoring, UAT or business validation, or logging and alert make testing. They don't do. They make sure they just pick the ETL mapping sheet and they focus on the transformation logic and various negative testing and boundary conditions. Okay. And when it comes to SST, then we do smoke testing. We means as a testing team, whether I'm a manual tester or automation tester, as a tester, my responsibility in SST is to smoke testing, data count validation, transformation logic testing, data type and format, negative testing, incremental load testing, and primary key and dedupe testing. And we don't do is this. We don't do this in SST because this SST environment is not designed for handling more load. So performance testing you cannot do there, and it is not, of course, designed for UAT and logging and alert mechanism. So let's go to the pre-prod now. So pre-prod, you see, we are checking the smoke testing, data count validation testing, and transformation logic testing. Then we do performance testing, schedule and monitoring testing, and logging and alert. Okay. Similarly, OAT, which is operational acceptance testing. See, we don't do their data count validation, we don't do here, and we don't do transformation testing, but rest of the other things we do except UAT. And UAT is specially designed for user acceptance testing, hence we do a bit of smoke testing there. Then V means this is done by business users, not the testing team as such, because the business users, they have to validate the system is working as expected from a business point of view. So this is separate environment maintained here. Okay. And in production, you must be wondering, oh well, the system has gone to production, why the testing is required? But it's not so. Still, a lightweight smoke testing is performed there with synthetic data. Kind of data is simulated and cleared up later. Then count is validated, transformation logic is tested, then scheduling is monitoring tested, make sure everything works, and user point of view or business point of view, everything is fine, that is also tested and validated, and logging and alert mechanism is tested. Okay, so I leave the mapping, this mapping table with this in the description below. Go to the description and click the link, and maybe there may be a couple of questionnaires you have to answer before downloading this. Okay, just click the link and download this. There will be not only this table, there will be various things, slides, artifacts attached to every video, which you can freely download and use it. Next one is test completion reports. This is the last slide. As a manual tester, you must produce a report after your testing is complete. That will have project summary and testing scope. You make sure you capture the project name and which environment it was tested and what all tools was used. Okay. So on tools, ETL tools, there is separate video. Go to the channel and see top 10 tools which manual testers or automation testers should or must know. Test scope based on ETL mapping sheet, which source systems and which target systems or entities were tested as part of the test completion, and what all job names and flows were tested. Thank you very much for your patience. If you like the video, please give a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Also put a comment if you are looking for a new video on any other topic.